for coming for our Parent Academy series. Tonight we have two presenters. We have Jim Sullivan, our Chief Compliance Officer, Special Ed Department for Fall River Schools. Thank you, Jim, for joining us. And we have Asidian Riyal for the Federation for Children with Special Needs. She's here. She'll be our second presenter tonight. Again, thank you so much for coming. Jim?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Very happy to be here. Happy to see so many of you here. Thank you for coming. I'm going to give you some information in the slide presentation. There'll be a spot for some questions at the end. If you don't have any, or if you have questions that don't get answered, feel free to obviously reach out to my office or the folks around the room. And we'll hope to get you those answered as soon as possible. All right. So my presentation really is about special education. So what is special education? Special education really means specially designed instruction, something that we provide in all public schools at no cost to families. It is free, it is part of public education. And we provide that specially designed instruction to meet the unique needs of a child with a disability. So in special education, we only work with students with disabilities on IEPs. In order to be eligible for special education, a student has to have a disability. So we have a few different disability categories in the state of Massachusetts and at the federal level. Disabilities such as autism, intellectual disability, maybe health, physical, there are a bunch of different categories. Student's got to have a disability, and the student has to require specially designed instruction. And what that really means, the instruction has to look different almost all the time or some of the time. Instruction has to be a different way to teach the student, maybe different materials, and we have to do that consistently in order to allow the students to access the curriculum in school and be successful. Right? Eligibility for special education, how we get there, it's determined by an IEP team. So a team of people gets together, they conduct evaluations, then they get together and they come to a meeting. You're at the table if your child is suspected of having a disability or in the special education evaluation process. And parents, school team members all come together and determine whether or not that child needs special education. Do they need specially designed instruction? And they do that evaluation through a variety of measures. They use evaluations, so standardized tests that some folks might give to kids. They also use observations, so what the children look like, how they present in the classroom, what information they can retain, are they learning, do they have areas of difficulty, what do they do well. And then we also look at their educational history. So has the child been instructed consistently? Have they had a number of absences? Have they had a gap in school because they had to move? We consider a number of factors to determine if a child has a disability and if they require specially designed instruction. Okay? If the team determines that a child does have a disability and requires that specially designed instruction, that child would be eligible for special education and would get what's called an individualized education program, or an IEP. So let's say a child is not eligible for special education, but they're struggling in school, right? That's okay. We have ways to support kids that are struggling with something in school. We can support them with a variety of needs at every school. One way is through our MTSS process, or multi-tiered system of supports. Really what that looks like in schools is our elementary schools, our middle schools, our high schools identify students who are struggling with a particular thing in school. They put in place some sort of a short-term intervention, a plan, some sort of help for the child to be able to get them to get better at something. And then they watch and they try to see, did that intervention work? Did our plan work? Is the child making progress now? Interventions that schools use oftentimes include, these are just a few examples. There's lots of things that our schools do outside of special education. They might use small group intervention. Anybody have a child that's been in a small reading group for maybe 6 to 8 weeks before? Yep. Right? Same thing for math. If they're struggling with a particular skill, we might intervene, put them in a small group for some extra help. And that wouldn't necessarily be special education, but that's part of what the school does to support anybody who's struggling. Some students with disabilities would also require accommodations. So let's say a student with a disability doesn't necessarily need special education. They don't need someone to teach them differently all the time or use different materials all the time. We don't need to necessarily modify the curriculum, but they might need some extra supports in the classroom so they can succeed. Those are called accommodations. Accommodations could be things like seating in the front near the teacher. They could be things like they need opportunities to get up and move in the middle of class because they like to move a lot. Anybody's kid like to move a lot? Like to move around the room? Yep. Okay. Those accommodations, if the student has a disability, can be part of what's called a 504 plan. That's just accommodations. We're giving them some little extra supports, help in the classroom to be able to succeed. And that's also outside of special education. Accommodations included but are not limited to, so these are some examples. Access to headphones. You guys have headphones now. Children may not like noise in the classroom or in a hallway. They put headphones on, the noise goes away. Movement breaks. Seating in the front of the room. They might need a reference sheet. Maybe a list of things they need to do in class as a reminder. So these are all the other supports that are available. So let's say the child is not eligible for special education. They don't need to be taught in a different way that's specialized. It doesn't mean that they don't get help if they're struggling with something. So referral for evaluation and the evaluation process. So in special education, if there is an IEP or there's a concern that there's a student with a disability, schools may choose to evaluate. Let's say they've gone through that small group reading, that small group math, the school's tried to help them with different supports, and they haven't worked. Right? We need something more that happens all the time. The stuff that we tried didn't work. Then we might consider an evaluation for special education if we think that that concern or that difficulty is related to a disability. So school teams consider those referrals if they suspect a disability and if the disability is causing that difficulty. So referrals for evaluation can be made by any school staff, team members, parents or guardians. Make referrals to special education, they request evaluations. Caregivers, doctors can request evaluations, pediatricians, therapists. In order to be eligible for special education, the IEP team, again, must evaluate. So what we talked about on the earlier slide, in the areas of suspected disability. So if we think the child may have a disability in math, a school team is required to assess math and see, compared to same age peers, compared to the performance of their peers, compared to their performance in the classroom, how are they doing? Are they really struggling with math, and is it a math disability? Okay, and in order to actually qualify for special education, this information is summarized in a flowchart. The flowchart comes from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. That flowchart is presented at every IEP team meeting in which eligibility is being determined. So if there's an evaluation, an initial evaluation, or reevaluation, and we're looking to say, does the child need special education? Are they eligible for it? We would use this flowchart. So I'll pull it up so you can see it, see the questions. So we'd ask a few questions. Does the child have a disability? And it lists different kinds. Autism, developmental delay, intellectual, sensory disability, neurological, emotional, communication, physical, a specific learning disability, or health. If they have a disability, in order to be eligible for special education, we then ask these questions. Is the child making effective progress in school? Children with disabilities can make effective progress in school. If they do, They may not need an IEP necessarily. Is the lack of progress a result of the disability? If it is, and the child requires special education or related services, that's that specially designed instruction we talked about, to make effective progress and access to general curriculum, then they'd be eligible for special education. Now, if they're making effective progress, or let's say the lack of progress, let's say the child is not making effective progress, and something else is getting in the way, it's not a disability, they may be eligible for other supports or help in other areas through the school. All right, folks. Technical difficulty. All right. All right. So after the eligibility process is completed, let's say a child is found eligible for special education, they get an IEP. All right? The IEP is a written plan for a student with a disability developed in a team meeting. Okay? And it uses this fancy term, it says through a local education agency. Really, all that is. The IEP is developed by the public school district. So, or the district where the student goes to school. So ours is the Fall River Public Schools. That's the local education agency. That's who's going to develop IEPs for students if they have a disability and they require that specially designed instruction. So the IEP details the student-specific learning needs. It has some goals where we want the student to get in the year. And it talks about ways that we need to teach the child differently, ways that we need to change the curriculum or the delivery of the curriculum, and then accommodations, things that the child needs in the classroom that are little helpful things that help them access the classroom. Who participates in the team process and the team meeting? Parents, teachers, including a special education teacher, a team chair or special education teacher that makes the decisions. That person in the team meeting who runs the meeting is called the LEA representative. And then any related services. If a child was evaluated and needs support in speech and language therapy, in occupational therapy, physical therapy, those folks would be at the team meeting too. And then as students get older, students that are 14 or older get to be a part of their IEP team meeting, and they get to talk about how they potentially struggle in school or things that may help them in school. Okay. So really what all this is for is who can help you. So let's say your child is struggling in school. Your first line of defense, always contact your school, your child's school, talk to the principal, talk to the school adjustment counselor, talk to the classroom teacher. See what we can do in the classroom, or see what the school can do in the classroom to support your child right then. They might be able to try something new. Okay? School providers such as a classroom teacher, school adjustment counselor, administrators can work with you to help determine the best course of action. Always go through them. Our schools are very, very happy to partner with parents. They love talking to parents, collaborating with parents, because they're there to support your child while they're there with those 6.5 hours. You guys get them for the rest of the day and overnight. So they're really happy to always partner and make sure that we're supporting kids together. And then just so you have some clarity, this is our special education team. So this is our leadership team. If you have questions about the special education process, you can contact our special education office. These are the folks that are assigned to different buildings. They're special education supervisors. They can give you information about what special education is. My name my name is right up here. I'm the Chief Officer of Special Education Compliance. Again, if you have questions, you can always reach out. Call the school, or you can call us. We can talk about how to best address the struggles you see for your child. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Já é medicada, mas mesmo assim, continua tendo dificuldades com as medicações.
Okay. So it depends on the difficulty. So I would talk right with your school. The person to go to at the school for the child would be the school adjustment counselor or the classroom teacher. In many cases, we have lots of students with concerns like that where attention in classroom is impacting learning. It depends on to what degree. And what I would suggest is talk to them about different things that they can do to help the child in the classroom, help your student in the classroom. Is he seated in the front of the class? Do they give him opportunities to move? Do they give him jobs? So they can do different things to be able to support him right now. But I would ask for that, at least initially. Okay, but those are the people to go to in the school if you have concerns about attention and, let's say, executive functioning in class. Okay. Other questions?
Lo que pasa es que yo he hablado ya 3 veces con Leila, porque mi niña está teniendo problemas, ella está bien bajita de todos los demás estudiantes. Y ella había quedado conmigo en la evaluación y nunca se la enviaron.
So she has talked to Layla in regards to her daughter because she sees that her daughter is performing low academically, and she's been asking, but she has not received any response.
Can you give one of these folks your name at the end of the presentation so that way we can have
So,
we can follow up on that?
al final de la presentación te puedes acercar a mí o a uno de ellos, a Daniel o a María, y darle la información, el nombre de tu niña y la escuela donde está. Entonces, no hay problema. Te vamos a estar contactando.
Thank you.
¿Alguno tiene otra pregunta? Que el señor Zuleta se vaya. We talk about this presentation and we talk about on youth too. This is the same process for youth, for kids that are in high school level.
Yes, so the process applies to anybody K to 12. Or pre-K to 12. Let me rephrase. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time. I really appreciate it. I was very happy to be here. If you need anything, please let our folks know around here, and they can follow up with me and our department and reach out if there are concerns or questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trey. Right out.
many of you are familiar with the Federation for Children with Special Needs? Okay, 1, 2. Nobody else? All right, that's awesome. So I'm in a great place. Okay, 2 more. 4 people. That's great. We have over 70 people. Yeah, that's great. So my name is Aceliane Leal. I speak Portuguese. I can see that I have a lot of people. They speak Portuguese here. I try to speak Spanish. I know that, people that speak Spanish, they're like, oh, it's very good. I think they're being kind to me. And English is my second language. I have 2 children. They're adults now, both of them with special needs. And when I arrived in this country, I didn't have children back in Brazil. So I didn't know anything about the educational system here. My daughter just turned 26, and my son is turning 21. And because of my son, I actually got involved with the special education process. During this process, that was really intense. My son's pediatrician noticed some change to be looking, observing when he was 7 months old. And then they switched. She moved to another clinic, another hospital, and a new one came in. The new one came in. I don't know your son. I need time to know him better. So that time to know him better, he missed a lot of time that he could have received services from a service from the state called early intervention. The earliest that you have services to provide for your children, that's the best approach, because the child is developing. And the earliest that you catch I'm trying to remember the word, I just look at someone that speaks Portuguese, my brain sometimes does that to me. So the early signs, which is a number of signs that you can actually get on the CDC website, and that goes by chronological age. So from 1 month old all the way to 18. Now I'm going to start talking about Federation. I know that I had 4 people that said the NEO Federation for Children with Special Needs. I came to the Federation because, like I said, my son didn't receive services from early intervention long enough for him to actually develop skills to control his behaviors. And I tried to put him in school, and the person said, Mom, you're lucky. Your son doesn't have any problems. He doesn't qualify for special education services. So from the age of 3 to the age of 5, that was that nightmare that every babysitter didn't want to watch my child because of his behaviors. When he started kindergarten on the first day, the principal called me and said, Mom, I'm going to pick him up because we need to find another school for your son. So that's when I submerged myself in a special education process. Like I said, my son's going to turn 21 next month. But talking about Federation, so 16 years ago, that's when I came across Federation. I came to that place because they had someone that spoke my language. And I got involved to the point that I was like, well, I have nobody else. I have to learn for myself so I can help my child. And what I learned through Federation, that they started the organization with 5 parents in a kitchen table. So the law, the handicap law, had passed in 1974. That was 1975 this group of parents in a kitchen talking about how the services didn't actually provide for their children yet. They started something that lasts for decades. Now Federation, that is the 50th year of Federation, so 5 decades. And what they did, they created partnership, collaboration with other advocates, other professionals, and they wrote a law, a proposal for the law, which today is our special education law that is called 766. And there was a base for the federal government for the federal law, which is IDEA. And just a little information for you, but here our mission. If you guys want to receive information directly from Federation or know more, I did set up a table at the back of the room. You can help yourself with the material. You can call us. We have a number of different languages that people, our staff actually speak. So the Federation promotes the family engagement. What that means that parents, and that one that was really hard for me, because I grew up, my parents just, they went to school when I got in trouble, only. So when my parents were called to go to the school, that was because Asiriani did something. And when they called me to go to pick my son up from school, that was because he was in trouble. My daughter, that was the opposite. She was, always a pleasure to have in class, and all those different speech in terms of speaking about her. And what I learned throughout all the years is that for the child to have the best outcome in school is when there is a partnership, a collaboration between the parents and the school system. It's an easy thing to do? No, there's a lot of differences in terms of a culture. There's a lot of things that the system here already have, and that is training that we can provide for the families so you can eliminate the barriers as much as possible, and put that away. So we do provide multiple services. Like I said, early on, when a child is born with a visible disability, the hospital already, make arrangements for the parents to leave, to have assigned someone from the early intervention or a nurse, or if it's a complex medical needs, they do have supports that they can, go or assign as they leave the hospital. However, if you are coming from another country and your child already has diagnosed back home, and you're coming here, you don't know how the system works, there is something that we can provide information for you, and you can get more familiar with the process. So there's many different entry points for you to actually understand this special education or the regular education, depending on each child of your family. The Federation, that's the numbers that are impact. We are a statewide organization, and we serve everybody for free. I mentioned before, we have, staff members that are bilingual and bicultural, and we take pride on that. So we do have multiple staff. They speak Spanish, they speak Portuguese, they speak Haitian Creole. There is one person that speaks French as well, and Chinese and Vietnamese. So we have those languages, and then we have other ones, Korean, Russian, Khmer. There is a few other languages that is more isolated group, and we do have people. And for those families that speak another language that we don't have the staff, we have the language line, so there is no way that, people are gonna be turned away if they speak another language. So we are here to help. We are a family center. So one thing that I skipped at the beginning, that was when the law was established, the state law and the federal law, they invested a federation, and the Federation for Children with Special Needs was the first parent training and information center of the country. That was the pilot program. And after that, they created 100 throughout the state, throughout the country, I'm sorry. I look at you, I got distracted, throughout the country. And those places are financed by the federal government. However, they don't take any information from the people. They just want us to help by training, like the training that Mrs. Sullivan provided. We do provide all those trainings throughout the lifetime of the child since turning 3, because it's the getting out of the early intervention and going into the period, the 2 years before going into kindergarten, from kindergarten to middle school, the middle school into high school, and all the nuances that might happen specifically for your child, or if it's English learner, if it's a child that suspects disability but doesn't have a close diagnosis yet, or like I mentioned before, your child had a diagnosis back home and then arrived here, but you don't know how to proceed. So we can provide all the information for you. And one of the, the Parent Training Information Center has a parent leadership training, which you can get a lot more training, an intensive one. You can do either virtually or asynchronous, what they call, which is you do on your own time, on your pace, and you can get all the information about special education process, including behavioral, including discipline, including a medical plan if you need for your child that has complex health needs. There is a number of a situation that you can actually get information from Federation. So I mentioned to you there is a Parent Training Information Center workshops. We have on our website the calendar, and we have multiple trainings every week. You can just go on the website, sign up for it, and attend the meeting virtually on your phone. And if you want, specifically in a specific language, we can make arrangements at any time that you guys want. And if you want to become a leader in your child's school, one of the things that you can is getting trained to understand better, but also be that bridge between the administrators and the parents. So that's a certain set of skills that you can be trained as well. And most schools, they have CPACs, which is the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. And some of the districts, they have what we call LPACs, English Learner Parent Advisory Council, which is for students that are English learners, and the CPAC for children with disability. But doesn't mean that your child is English learner and have a disability as well. So you can be part of both groups and get involved with your school. Health Advocacy Federation also, there was a group of parents that actually was able to, back then, advocate to have the right to stay with their children when they were at the hospital, if the child has to stay overnight. because they usually would send the parents home and they stay with the kid. So nowadays, we're like, what are you talking about? Yes. So back then, they would keep the child and would send the parent home. So that was through their advocacy that actually create the opportunity that today we actually have a chance to stay with our child when they are sick and they need long-term services within the hospitals. So I mentioned to you that the paraprofessional training, which is the PCTI, and if you are interested in it, just get in contact with us. I can show you on the website and send you the information, or you can write your email and in your language. You don't have, just leave in the back, and I can get back to you with that information. And the main focus that Federation tried to do is the family engagement, empower parents to be involved throughout the educational process of each child of the family. So you might have a child with a complex needs, and the other one doesn't give you any problem, like, like my daughter, pleasure to have in class, until the time that she, grew up a little bit more, and she was like, hold on, I have needs as well, right? So the thing is, we want to help you to address every single child in your family, and what we need is for you to just get in contact with us. Another program within the organization is called RTSC, and they do provide advocates, or I should say, is a representative. It's appointed by court when the child is actually removed from the family. So the child is under state custody, but because there is no parent to make educational decisions for the child, then the Federation has a program where they assign those people that actually have training to make the educational decision for that child that is on the custody, state custody. Another part of this project is Pathways, and the Pathways is actually working with the grandparent raising grandchildren. So that is not unusual when the child is removed from home for DCF, the Department of Children and Families, to try to find someone that is close to the family so they don't keep the child close with someone that the child knows. And that person has, of course, a process to actually be able to stay with the child, but then they have a chance to get at what is called kinship, which is the custody is for the grandparent for that grandchild. What I see a lot is the difficulties, the differences in terms of generations, grandparents, technology, young child, middle schooler, high schoolers that are in a different generation. So there is a lot of situations where the Pathways provide workshops and support for the grandparents or any relatives actually caring for the child that was removed. We are an organization that have annual conference, and our annual conference is actually next Saturday, this March 9th, and it's going to be virtual. We have about 40 presentations in multiple languages, and the cost is $25, but if you have, if you want, you can pay for the $25, just approach me. I can give you the information. So we want to make sure that you have a chance to actually be part of this opportunity. You might ask, what do you want from me? Right? You're offering so many things for free, and what do you need from me? So what we need from you is your engagement with us, being part of the presentations, get information from us, and when we ask you to fill it out the survey, then if you can, fill it out those surveys. We do have what is called Connecting Families. It's a session, a monthly session, and in that session, they have different presenters that come. Federation offers interpretation for multiple language. When you register, you can actually mention what kind of, which language you speak, just to guarantee that they will have the interpreter at the time. And at the end, you just tell us how the presentation actually was helpful for you. So here is our thank you, and that's it. So I will be open if you have any questions. I know that I got a lot of information from you, but I hope that you're going to get in contact and learn a little bit more about us. Thank you. I wasn't sure what time after I was supposed to stop.
Okay. No questions.
I don't think they have. Yes, I didn't know about that.
Family Academy Night. Please join us next month. It'll be the last Wednesday of the month, so please join us. Thank you. Gracias. Obrigada.